Good evening, everyone. At this time, I'll call to order the business meeting for the Faribault Public Schools School Board here on April 21st, 2025. We welcome those of you who are present here at the district office and those of you who are watching online. At this time, Ms. Steves, will you determine if the board has a quorum present?
Yes, Mr. Chair, there is.
Good. Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and I would just add it was wonderful to hear young voices reciting the pledge. That was absolutely awesome. So agenda item number 2, board members, is the approval of the agenda. I do have a couple changes here in the agenda. If you would go to the consent agenda, item number 6, I'm going to pull 6B, employment, and 6C, additional assignments other, as individual agenda items to be addressed after approval of the consent agenda. So we'll still remain them as 6B and 6C, but we'll put them after approving the consent agenda and put them before number 7 to deal with those individually for discussion on those. It's been requested. And then later on with policies, I have a couple I'll pull, but that's not it there. So I would ask for a motion for approval of the agenda with chair flexibility. We have a motion for that, please. Thank you, Director Boudreau, and do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Knudsen. Any discussion? Discussion. All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item number 3 is recognition awards and presentations. So our presentation here this evening is from Lincoln Elementary School, the Smart Room Student Success Coach, or PBIS, and community involvement. So Principal Amy Bauma, if you would come up and bring the demonstrators here as well. So welcome, students.
All right, well, thank you for having us. I brought quite the crew tonight for you. We are here, and before we're even going to begin into our presentation, we're going to take a minute to go through and just introduce ourselves. Dacian, you want to go first?
Ms. Bauma, do you want to take the microphone and just go with each other?
My name's Jason, and I'm in 5th grade.
My name is Caleb, and I'm in 1st grade.
My name is Margaret, and I'm in kindergarten.
My name is Montez, and I'm in 2nd grade.
My name is Mason, and I'm in 5th grade.
Hi, I'm Callie Case. I'm the success coach at Lincoln.
Nice.
My name is Camden, and I'm in 3rd grade.
Hi, I'm Abby Sefko. I teach 4th grade at Lincoln.
Hi, my name is Henry, and I'm in 1st grade.
And I am Amy Bowman, the principal at Lincoln Elementary. So we are here today because we want to talk to you a little bit about a program that we implemented this year called our Smart Room. So as you can see, SMART stands for Stimulating Maturity Through Accelerated Readiness Training. So what does that mean? We know in education that movement matters, that it strengthens our focus ability and it really supports our learning. So what the Smart Room actually is, or the SMART program, is it's a strategic approach to support that cognitive and that physical development of students. It is a system of purposeful movements and skill practice that really builds those foundational readiness skills and prepares our students for learning. And basically how we kind of tell that into student terms is that it's a program that helps get their brains and their bodies ready to learn. So as I said, it stands for Stimulating Maturity Through Accelerated Readiness Training. And so when we look at each part of SMART and what it stands for, that S for stimulating, that really talks about our brains learn through repetition. So that as our brains are growing through time, We need to continue many, many, many times seeing, hearing, touching, to have those meaningful experiences. Then we talk about maturity, and we talk about that's the neurological and the developmental maturity of our students. So the goal for that is to support that full development of sensory systems. The acceleration talks about how we want our brain messages to travel more efficiently and more quickly. And by utilizing SMART, our SMART program, that really creates more neutral pathways, which increases the speed of transmission for our students' learning. The readiness is talking about, that really focuses on how that strong foundational skills equals that a brain that's ready for learning. So our students are able to come in and they're ready for learning those academic tasks that we ask for them to do. And then the training, SMART trains the brain and the body. So we talk about through purposeful movement that students develop the skills that are needed to be successful learners. Now I have my buddy here, Mason, who's going to talk about the next slide.
Signs a student may not be ready to learn: reverse letters or skips words, struggles with phonics, poor listening comprehension, trouble writing, cutting, or coloring, difficult following the direction, constant movement, or falls out of chair. These behaviors clues that the body-brain system needs more support.
Thank you, buddy. So what does it look like for our students? So if you were to come into Lincoln Elementary, you would see SMART happening in three basic areas of our school: in the classroom, around the school, and then in what we have as a SMART room. So essentially, it's all over Lincoln. Mrs. Sefko is going to talk in a second about what this looks like in the classroom, and then we'll talk about in the hallways or transition times, and then we'll talk to you a little bit about our SMART room as well.
Hello. So I teach fourth grade, and after going to the training for SMART last summer with Principal Boma and Ms. Case, I was able to write a grant and got some money from the Faribault Chamber of Commerce from their Career to Cradle program, and they were able to give me some money to get supplies to be able to do some of the SMART activities in my classroom, and I've been able to share some of those materials with my grade level as well, like third, fourth, and fifth grade. One of the things that we will do in the classroom, I call it spin spots, but it's based off of helicopter spins. So each student has their name on a Velcro spot around the room, and they go to that. When we do spin spots, they go to that spot. They spin, we count it down as a class, and they spin for 15 seconds, and the point is to get a little bit dizzy, and then they pause for 15 seconds, and then the point of that is to become undizzy. And the point of that is it helps their balance and their concentration by working the fluid in their eardrums. So I have found it to be very helpful to do before like reading lessons and stuff, and it gets a little bit of movement out. Another activity that we are able to do in the classroom is very simple. They're sitting at their desks, and it's called near and far. And so you'll do a focus on your thumb and then tell them something around the room. So it practices their vision, getting them ready to be able to, their brain's ready to be able to do whatever activity we're about to do. Another activity that we have, it's based off of one that's in the big room, but it's just a strip of tape on the floor coming in and out of our classroom. So the kids, when they're going to go out to the bathroom, for example, they'll do the balance beam activity coming in and out of the room to get that extra practice of that. And that also kind of goes with another one that we do, where coming in and out of the room, I change it so the kids stay interested in it. But I'll put Velcro spots that they'll like jump to, for example, for like math facts and that kind of stuff, as they come in and out of the room or different places in the classroom. So those are some of the things that we're able to do this year.
On the screen now you can see what we would call visual trackers, and the purpose of these is to strengthen the eye muscles in connection to reading. We want students to be able to track letters and then follow in distinct smooth movements. And so we do that with these trackers. Students start on a dot, they follow lines, and you can see we have on, task, and soar. So we're trying to integrate our PBIS ideas as well, getting kids seeing those words more often and keeping that focus strong. And it's great because you can do this with anything. You can do your spelling words, your vocabulary words, and you can even just do lines for students who might not be able to read yet. So again, this is for hand-eye coordination and then strengthening the eye muscles. And then if you go on, we're starting with the core 4. So when we went to the training, they told us some of the practices, some of the movements to really focus on, and the pencil roll is one. You'll see the students do this. So on the mats, this movement is supposed to be something that's really fast. So students might get dizzy, but the purpose of it is to give students full body input from head to toe, and then it helps them practice their spatial awareness, and then helps them develop skills to direct their body into the right spot. So you'd think, like, what purpose might this have for the classroom? It's strengthening their skills to be able to have body control when in the classroom the teacher's expecting them to sit in their desk or come over here. It just helps them to strengthen that control. So that's the pencil roll, and kids seem to really like that one. There's another version of it called the egg roll, where the hands are at the side, but pencil roll is a fun one for them. And you can do that outside, at the playground. And then the next one you'll see is called the alligator crawl. This one, the main idea is we want students to be crossing the midline. And there's so much research that shares that doing that is so good for the brain and the student's ability to learn. So you can see JC on now, he's using his feet and his hands to pull and push. And a lot of kids, in the beginning when we taught this, it was so funny because they want to push with the backs of their legs. And they're really great at it now. Look at Margaret go, way to go. And they have, goodness, yeah. So seen that. And then you can see this is also multi-purpose. So underneath it we have the slap track. We'll let Montez, you want to do the alligator crawl still before we move on? Yeah? Way to go. So with the slap track, or the creep track, there's cards you can see under that, and we try and make sure the cards are multi-purpose for different levels. So students coming in kindergarten can name colors or shapes or numbers, but then higher level students might be working on prefixes or suffixes, vocabulary, multiplication. So as they go, they're seeing what they're going to be practicing, and then they see it, say it, slap it. So you can see JC on, he's slapping it, and on the creep track you crawl kind of like a baby, but it's it's for hand-eye coordination, but then we're also integrating the academic skills. Helps with balance, bilateral coordination. Can you say it really loud, Margaret? Which one are you picking?
12, 9, 6, 7, 8, 9, 8, 16, 40, 56.
I see Mason using the songs we taught too. Nice job, Mason. Nice job, John. All right, and then the balance beam. So the purpose of this is, of course, to help students working on their balance. And believe it or not, doing this slowly in the way that we taught them was really challenging. So when you do this, you have to go heel, toe, and with the little ones, we tell them to have their heel kiss their toe. So we go heel, toe, kiss, and then they go. But if you do a balance beam quickly with larger steps, you'll find that it's much easier. So having them slow down, it really makes them focus on body control and staying balanced. Back at Lincoln, in our smart room, we have another balance beam that's a little bit higher off the ground. And so it's fun to see the kids. They're pretty brave with this one, of course, but then when you're up 6 or 8 inches, they'll be a little bit more careful, and you can see them really focusing. Yes, it works on their core muscles, yeah.
And you can differentiate also as with the older kids, where when they're walking, if they put like a bean bag on the ground, where they'll have to do that, and then they pick up the bean bag. So there's different levels of different.
And again, integrating academic things on the sides, you can add. All right, and then the last thing you'll see on the screen, learning ladders. We didn't bring this, and we also have our rebounders. So the purpose of this is, again, exposure. So the more students are seeing things, the more automatic, especially with reading and vocabulary, words can become. So at Lincoln, we have sight words and different lists of multiples, two for students to work on, and they work up the ladder, so they start at the bottom. So, for example, if I was doing the blue one on the left there, I'd say 7, jump, 3, and then I'd jump, 9, and I'd jump all the way up to the top. And then I'd repeat going back down. And then when I finished that, I could go on to the next station. And so in the beginning of the year, all the students were taught the routine and the cycle. And so now when they go into the smart room, it's pretty smooth. They know their jobs.
And before I open it for your questions and comments, I wanted to make one last little comment about last summer. We were able to use some grant money to, as Ms. Stefko was talking about, me and about 4 or 5 other teachers got to go to this 3-day training. And the first day, it was all about the brain and how the brain works and developmentally and so forth. And then the second 2 days were really cool because we learned all about these different activities that we could implement, and we did them. So that way we felt comfortable and confident when we were when we had rolled it out to our students. One of the biggest areas that got brought up to us was that in order for this to be something that was really meaningful and purposeful, teachers, staff are supposed to put in 25 to 30 minutes a day. We know that you can't just add 30 minutes to the end of the school day and ask parents to come pick them up, right? So we know that we wanted to be creative, and so we brainstormed different ways that we could utilize some of these activities during the day. And one of the ways that we did that was we had talked with our Phi-Ed teachers, and they had committed to spending the first 5 minutes and the last 5 minutes to doing some of this during their gym time. So that was one area that we could take off 10 minutes from the teachers to have to do that. Another way was starting the school year, we really worked hard on working with the staff during professional development to say, this is this is an easy way for you when you're lining your kids up to go to Phi-Ed. Here are some things that you can do, and so forth. So it's not just they need to go to the smart room for 25 minutes, but there's a lot of times where they're able to just do it during the day, right? During transition times from breakfast to coming down and starting morning meeting, there's all kinds of activities. So it's really been an all hands on deck approach, and it's just something that has been very helpful this year. Going forward, I know so we do teacher-led recess, and so another area that I think we can improve on and that we can continue to implement is really looking at like monkey bars and hopscotch and jump rope. Those are different activities that also would be included in this, that with teacher support and teacher guidance, that's just another time that they can get these activities in. So that was kind of a lot. All in all, the SMART activities and the SMART program that we have implemented at Lincoln have been super helpful and super great for our students. We've seen them grow stronger physically, they've been able to focus a lot better, and they're just really ready and they're able to accomplish those academic tasks because, as we say with our students, we know that this program, the goal of it is to have a ready brain in a ready body. So, are there any questions?
Thank you. Board members, any questions here? Director Moore.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I had the pleasure of visiting Lincoln, and I put it on my shout-out page. That was, I think, a couple months ago. And I think it's so important for the movement, for learning. And you're right about the brain research. I had a statistics professor he was probably one of the best professors I've ever had in college. And he was really into the brain research. So, yes, the movement is very important for the brain development and things like that. So, congratulations. All the students did an excellent job. I want to thank you. I think we should give them a round of applause. Thank you, the teachers as well. So.
Any other board members? Director Robichaud.
Just have a comment. You said you had a grant from the chamber.
They were, I had done a donor's choose, and somebody from the Chamber of Commerce had seen my donor's choose, and so then they were able to give me some of that money from the
Cradle to Career program. Yep.
career program.
Are you familiar with Faribault Enrichment Education Program?
Yes, and
Okay, you can apply
I've done
for a
things
grant.
through there
Okay.
as well.
Great, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Just want to make sure you're aware of it.
Absolutely.
Yes, I've done
It's
through
right
there
here
as
in
well.
front of you.
Oh, I go through all of them.
Good.
But thank you for that, I appreciate it.
Any other comments, board members?
I just think it's a really cool program, and shout out to you guys for thinking innovatively. I think, there's all of these strategies can be very easily implemented at home to continue that learning at home. And, like when you're jumping or pencil rolling, I don't pencil roll too often, but I think, that brain activity is just like a repetition thing. Yes. I'm wearing a skirt today, so we won't be doing that. But yeah, thank you for all the innovative programs, and it was a pleasure to work with you through the Cradle to Career program as well.
So with that, and I apologize if I missed it, but are most grade levels and classrooms using some portion of this, or is it mostly in the lower grades?
It's both. I think that the smart room, the actual room that we have designated for it, that would be more of our special ed staff and our younger grades, but then a lot of the older grades do it more in their classroom, but the option is open for everybody.
Right.
We have times that we have signed up that we can, that are reserved for our classes if we would like to go down there. So we're able to.
Great, excellent. Director Robichaud.
Many of the students feel comfortable answering this question. How do you like the program? Maybe the heartbreaker should answer that. How do you like this? Do you enjoy this? Does it help you? Anybody else want to respond? Any student?
What's your favorite activity to do, Montez? Pencil roll? How about you?
Next to you.
Can we go down in an order really quick?
Yeah,
Okay,
if you
Jason,
wish.
you start. You tell us your favorite one.
Ms. Baum, if you send the microphone to
Oh,
that'd be
yes.
great. Thank you.
Balance beam. The alligator crawl.
The pencil roll.
The pencil roll. I like all of it. I like all of it too. I like all of it too.
It's quite an endorsement.
I did not tell them to say that.
Any further questions or comments, board members? Seeing none, well, thank you for coming in. I've learned a thing or two.
Thank you.
As well. I think sometimes when the board doesn't respond all that well, maybe to seconds and motions, maybe we might leave these here and do the pencil roll and the balance beam. So get us stimulated as well.
We'll leave
to
the
that.
mats there.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Let's give them a round of applause again.
Can I help?
Wow. Big helpers.
Excellent. Let's move on to agenda item number 4, items of information. Student board representative, Ms. Jillian Huberty.
Yeah, so I just have a quick report for tonight. So some updates on what our district youth council has been doing. So the Photo Boys campaign that I talked to you a few times about, the posters are finally complete for that. So they'll be put up around different parts in our community. So it's 5 different posters with prompts that say like what brings you hope in the community, and it's been answered by different students who have submitted pictures and statements of things that bring them hope in the community, what bring them joy, things like that. So it's a compiled, it's like a long, tall rollout poster, and there's 5 different ones of that. So those are all done. We just got them like last Wednesday. They just finally came in. Our spring data summit is May 7th, so that's the one that we do twice a year where we'll meet with TCU, Women, Northfield, and we go over different sets of data each fall and spring. So that's super exciting. It's a great chance to learn what different schools are doing. TCU and WEM have very different makeups than we do. compared to Northfield and Faribault are a lot more similar. So it's interesting to see how they function. They're a lot smaller too than Faribault and Northfield are. So it's really interesting to get to talk to different students. And then District Youth Council for prom is putting on the Be Safe, Be Sober campaign. So we're having a table during lunches and before school with pledge cards for students to sign that they'll be safe and be sober on prom and around prom. And then having conversations with high schoolers about not getting into the car with people who are under the influence, not just drinking, but under any influence, is super great. So students sign a card, they make a pledge that they will be safe and be sober on prom.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Huberty. 4B, school board members, items of information. Anyone?
Mr. Chair, I just have a comment. I want to thank the board members for their support for FAPSETA. Your generous donation. We will be awarding a scholarship this year for $1,500 to a student graduating from Faribault Senior High School. It's called a leadership scholarship. I want to thank you very much for your generous donation to that scholarship. We will have a more formal presentation about FAPSETA and FEEP after our award ceremony, which is May 7th, I believe it will be.
Yep.
Thank you. And we can talk about who the recipient is for the award and also how many dollars in the awards we've given to how many students. So it's a little more formal presentation after that.
I would encourage all board members and everyone in the community to come to the awards night at the high school. It is it's second to none with showcasing our students. So 6 o'clock. Yep, 6 o'clock to whenever it's done with, right? It takes a while, yes.
And no storms this year, right?
Right.
Mr. Benty?
That's what I guarantee.
That's right. Any other board members, items of information? Director Moore?
Yes. Yes. And this is, I have been concerned about a few things, and I think some of the people in the community have too. We have the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Executive Order 14190. That's in conjunction with this act. In fact, it complements that act. And from what I understand, by February 28th, 2025, the Minnesota school districts have to have eliminated DEI from their programs. And if not, the school districts could lose federal money. And from the audit, from what I was looking at, in June 30th, we have federal monies coming for Department of Agriculture, Department of Treasury, Department of Education, Department of Health and Human Services, Corporation for National Community Service, and that comes to about $9.2 million. I know the U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi has set her sights on Maine and California. And from my understanding, Minnesota is next. We have to look at this seriously. With the federal cuts looming, I don't think, we can't wait for the courts to decide this. And as a reminder to the school board too, we are responsible for the budget and for budgetary aspects. So with this in mind, I am proposing at our school board retreat next week, instead of working on the mission and vision, that we focus on how we're going to remove DEI from our Faribault public school programs, otherwise we'll lose the money. I think this is a pressing issue, and I think that we can't put it off. We have to address this, because that's a lot of money to lose. So, thank you.
Any other board member? Seeing none, we'll move on to items of information. Superintendent Benty.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I have a couple pages here of items of information from the chair that I sit in. Congratulations to the talented cast, musicians, and directors who brought SpongeBob the Musical to life. We had 53 students and 7 directors involved. It was a vibrant, collaborative production and a true showcase of the talent that we have here at Faribault Public Schools. Ms. Thompson's second grade class hosted an informational writing publishing party. The students researched details about an animal's appearance, diet, habitat, and fascinating facts. After 3 weeks of researching, writing, and preparing, the students did an amazing job presenting their work to their families. Our Faribault Area Learning Center graphic design students put their creativity to work for a cause they care about. The students recently visited Ruth's house to proudly deliver their donation. After 2 years of training, the Jefferson Elementary PBIS team has officially graduated from PBIS cohort number 19. Throughout the program, they've developed positive behavior practices, engaged students and the community, and celebrated achievements, building on the great work already happening at Jefferson. We're proud of their progress and their dedication to PBIS. Faribault Rotary Strive program recently awarded scholarships to 15 Faribault area seniors in recognition of their growth, their hard work, and their dedication. Strive stands for students taking a renewed interest in the value of education, and it supports students through mentorship and goal setting. Congratulations to these outstanding students and to the Faribault Rotary for supporting their success. In case you have not heard, Cannon River STEM School is closing their doors at the end of this school year. All right, we want to let the families know that we have room for their students and would love to welcome them to Faribault Public Schools. All right, so far we've had 50 STEM families reach out to us and enroll their students with us for the fall. And we have been reaching out to them as well. Also, our English-Spanish dual immersion program continues to be a huge success. We currently have a waiting list for next school year for that program. Right. And then upcoming, we already have 150 incoming kindergarten students registered for this fall, where our goal is 200. That is the number that we are looking to set our budget off of. So for families who haven't registered yet, we're hosting a pre-K and kindergarten registration event on May 7th at Roosevelt from 7:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. Families will have the chance to meet the principal, take a guided tour, and get help with the registration process. And the last piece I have is, remember, it is not too late to register for Faribault Summer STEAM. Please visit our website to learn more and to register. Mr. Chair, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Superintendent Benty. Move on to agenda item number 5, which is public comment. We do not have anyone for public comment this evening. Agenda item number 6 is the consent agenda, and as the approval for the agenda here. So the consent agenda will consist of the minutes from the March 17th, 2025 meeting, the authorization of payments, transfers, and investment account, and retirements. So is there a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Director Steves and Director Boudreau with the second. There's no discussion, so all in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Next, we'll move then to 6B, employment. So do we have a motion for approval of the agenda item 6B, employment?
So moved.
Thank you, Director Robichaud, and a second by Director Steves. And discussion. I believe, Director Moore, you wanted to ask some questions here.
Yes, thank you. And I did get some of them answered, but I noticed on there that we had 14 staff. It was, well, I went through it fast, to be hired for STEAM. And one thing I would like to say too, please note I'm not stating anything against these programs. I think when I looked at STEAM, I think it's a good thing. We need, and STEAM is science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And I think we do need to support our students in that. But I noticed there was 10 STEAM facilitators, 2 program managers, and only 2 teachers. Also, I was looking down the line too, also for the Falcon Dance, there's 7 program facilitators and 2 leads. I guess my question is, how long have we had the STEAM program in Faribault Public Schools?
The STEAM program has been around, I know, at least since the summer of 2014, because it was one of the pieces that was approved by the 2013 levy by the community, and there used to be money that came from the general fund through that levy to support the STEAM program in the summer.
Yeah. And you said it's not out of general fund, but we do have, I think the last count was 8 funds, so it's funded by funds from Community Ed then, correct?
So funding questions, I'm going to have Ms. Raisler and Mr. Pruitt come up to explain how the funding for the STEAM program works.
Okay.
So, well, no, I'll let you go first.
So Summer STEAM serves over 300 kids each year for 7 weeks, all day Monday through Thursday. So there are a lot of staff. There are a lot of teachers as well. Those are listed in the extended contract portion of your materials. But there are also a lot of kids for a lot of hours, and it does take staff to do that. And so it's paid for by a combination of targeted services funding, as well as we're really fortunate as a district to receive a 21st Century Community Learning Center grant. It's a competitive grant that was funds us at about $625,000 a year to be able to support both our summer and our after-school programming, both summer STEAM and our community school programming. So as a result of that, previously the general fund did fund summer STEAM. It was part of the levy, as Superintendent Benty said. We gave back that $150,000 as part of the budget cuts last year. And so the general fund at this point does not fund summer STEAM. It's funded through those sources as well as community ed resources as well.
So it's coming out of taxpayer money though, all of it?
Yes.
Yes, whether at the Minnesota State, it's mostly Minnesota State then? Or is it
the 21st Century Community Learning Center grants are funded through MDE, but it's federal money that goes through.
federal money?
Federal money, and then targeted services funding is state money. So it's a combination of those two. I should also say we are fortunate to receive funding from the United Way as well, so local support as well.
I think it's important to understand too that targeted services is part of the general ed formula as well.
Okay.
So some of those dollars are coming straight from, just like we have gen ed dollars for any of our students. The targeted services portion is, the revenue there is based on that gen ed as well.
Okay, and so what grades then? For the
First through eighth?
first through eighth, okay. I guess, and from, on the surface, it seems STEAM is a very good program. I guess my problem, it is taxpayer money, and we do need to be, as a public servant, and, the taxpayers voted us in, we need to show accountability. And I'm just concerned that, our science scores have gone down the last 4 years. Our math scores are below 20%. I think there needs to be some taxpayer accountability there. So I am going to vote for this, but I think we need to start seeing some improvement, some major improvement, because we are accountable to the taxpayers, and this is taxpayer money. And that's I guess, thank you for explaining.
So I just have a little bit of, not really opinion, but just personal experience with the STEAM program. So my 2 older kids have participated in the STEAM program. My oldest has particularly benefited from it. He was in first grade when, in 2020 when COVID hit. And honestly, it is what helped us get through COVID. It is what helped him learn how to read. It's what helped his mental health keep going and get to the next level. So I'm a very strong supporter of the summer STEAM program, and I'll wholeheartedly support this. In any
Yes,
way that
I
can.
was going to vote, but I needed to ask some questions. And, you have anecdotal evidence, and that is good. I just wish we could see some numbers, and the public needs to see some numbers too. Because
Yeah.
we've got quite a few people, as I said, it's 14, at least 14 staff. Only 2 teachers though. So, but I guess my point is that we need to start seeing some numbers come up, especially with science. And science achievement has gone down the last 4 years. And math, it's less than 20%. So as school board members, we need to demand accountability too for the taxpayers. So thank you for what's your input though. And I'm going to vote for it, but I think we need to see some more of a success rate in the coming years, and so.
Thank you. Director Robichaud.
I just have a question. Ms. Moore, you have a very soft voice.
Oh,
Could you speak
Bend-
to the
bend down.
microphone a little bit more?
Bend that down.
I
just a
did
little
push
bit.
this like here.
Yeah,
I'll sound like I'm yelling, maybe.
no.
If I sound like I'm yelling, I'm not going. Okay,
Thank you very much.
Any further discussion on 6B employment? Director Boudreau.
Maybe it would be helpful for a little review of how the STEAM program aligns with our current goals. Ready for kindergarten, read well by third grade, middle school math. I'm sure it ties together, so or we wouldn't be doing that, I'm assuming. But I would like to hear if someone has, maybe the person, I don't know if it's you, Zach, but I'd like to hear from you.
Yeah, we could for sure bring others in, but I think one of the huge benefits of it, just to be sure folks have sort of the accurate information, is we are really lucky to have our teachers who are willing to spend their time in the summer working on it. So there are more than 2 teachers. If you look on the extended contract, there's quite a few teachers who are willing to spend at least their morning, if not their whole day, working with STEAM on sort of core academic subjects, reading, math, science, and then there is a component that's included as well around enrichment and exposure to career pathways and other opportunities as well. So this is just my opinion. I think it fits really closely with what the district's goals and priorities are, in addition to being a great resource for both students and for families in our community. And I think it's something that I know I'm proud of, and I think the district as a whole should be really proud of too.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And how many students did you say you're anticipating this year?
Yeah, there should be over 300 again this year.
That's pretty incredible. Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion on 6B employment? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next, we'll move on to 6D. Authorization of, I'm sorry, yes, it's 6C, right, Director Moore?
No, I have, my questions were answered.
You want, we didn't, we pulled B and...
Oh, we pulled, okay, we can
we
do
pulled
C
B
now,
and D,
without
right?
discussion. Okay.
Or did we pull B and C? Jamie?
B and C.
C, okay.
B and C.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. I have 2 different things
Yeah,
marked here, so.
no, I'm fine.
Take a
kinda
motion for
combined.
approval of 6C, additional assignments, other, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Director Steves, and a second by Director Boudreau, and discussion. So my understanding, Director Moore, is you have, the questions you had have been answered already on 6C. Is there any other discussion here? Discussion, hearing none. All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We'll move on to agenda item number 7, the District Advisory Committee. There is no report. Agenda item number 8, Policy Committee. There is no report from the Policy Committee. Thank you, Ms. Reisler and Mr. Pruitt for coming up there. Sorry. And then 8A, second reading of policies. So first we will take a motion for the following policies. Approval policy 503 is student attendance. Policy 507.5, school resource officers. Policy 615, testing accommodations, modifications, and exemptions for IEPs, Section 504, plans and LEP students. Those 3 we will do in one motion. So motion for approval of those 3 policies, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Director Robichaud. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Knudsen. Any discussion? Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next, we'll take entertain a motion for policy 613, which is 8A3, policy 613, graduation requirements. Motion for approval of policy 613. Also move approval for that policy. And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Knudsen. And discussion. And Director Moore, I will turn that to you since you asked for that one to be pulled.
Thank you. I'll try to speak loudly here. Yeah, for the first time I'm going to speak about is policy 613. And also I was going to speak about policy 598 when the time comes. Now, these two policies were discussed at the policy committee meeting. However, the points that I'm bringing out, I think, need to be addressed at the school board meeting. And I think this policy, there was just revisions were made, and I was fine with the revisions. So, but I think most public observers are more interested in the school board meeting than a policy meeting, even though it's online. And this had to do with the graduation and requirements. The fact that in 2026-27, the school year, Faribault Public Schools will be offering an ethnic studies course per Minnesota and the WALS agenda. And I read some of this, and it said ethnic, this is in the Ethnic Studies 120B.025 at the Revisor, Minnesota. Ethnic Studies analyzes the way in which race and racism have been and continue to be powerful social, cultural, and political forces. I think this is people that adhere to this. They believe that systemic racism is in our country, and not all people agree with that. And I taught sociology, and we have three basic sociological theories. It's functionalism, symbolic interaction, and conflict. And this basically is a conflict theory, and it's Marxist and communist. And the goal is to overthrow the government. And I'm having a very big problem with an ethnic studies because of this. And not all people believe this. And if we are truly equitable and, to all viewpoints, I think this is discrimination. And because, in fact, I got the Minnesota Human Rights Act right here.
Director Moore, can I ask a question, please?
Yeah.
We are discussing policy 613. So are your comments on the policy that's written here, or are you're addressing something that's not in this policy? Because we should be thank you for letting me finish. We should just be addressing the policy 613 because that's what was approved in the motion and what's in policy 613. Because I've read this 3 or 4 times, and I have not seen, unless I missed it, some of the items that you're talking about. So I would appreciate if we'd focus on our comments only on what's in the graduation requirements for policy 613.
Mr. Chair, I have a problem with the ethnic studies, and my previous statements gave background as to why I am. So I think it does apply. It is germane.
Is ethnic studies addressed in the policy right here?
Yes, it says ethnic studies. But
thank you.
yes, I'm sorry, I should have said that. I believe, according to the Minnesota Human Rights Act, that this is discrimination against the beliefs of some Christian beliefs and the Somali students' beliefs. And this is a violation of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Therefore, because of this, I will be voting against this policy. Thank you.
Just
For the discussion of policy 613.
Sorry, Mr. Green.
Director Steves?
I'm just reading, I'm going to read the paragraph verbatim. An ethnic study course may fulfill a social studies, language arts, math, or science credit if the course meets the applicable, I can't read today, state and academic standards. An ethnic studies course may fulfill an elective credit if the course meets applicable local standards or other requirements. Mr. Benty, is an ethnic studies course a requirement or a benchmark?
An ethnic studies course is a requirement by the state.
Okay. And just for...
And I'm looking for Julie. Is it a requirement that is a standalone course, or is it a requirement that there are standards to be embedded in other courses? Okay, that we'll have to check on, whether it's can be a standalone, has to be a standalone course, or whether it can be standards that are embedded in other courses to receive that credit. But what they mean there is it may fall into other required areas, so that it might count towards language arts or towards a social studies or elective credit if that student needs one of those to graduate.
And just for clarification's sake, a requirement set by the state is required, and a benchmark is not necessarily required, but could be a benchmark to measure the required standard.
So the state sets standards that need to be reached, and sometimes they'll set courses with standards that need to be taught. Benchmarks fall under the standards as a way to teach those.
Okay.
The MCA test that is given, especially in reading and math, do touch on the benchmarks as well as the standards.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion, board members? Policy 613.
Mr. Chair,
Director Moore.
People do understand that it's what we're talking about is the ethnic studies, and I have a problem with what is being taught there. I think Mr. Chad Wolf said one time, I think it was at the last meeting, we want to make sure when we vote, we want to make sure that we understand what we're voting for. And I cannot, in good conscience, vote for this because of the background that I gave. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Moore. Last call for discussion. Hearing none. All in favor of approving policy
Do we
613?
have a roll call, please?
I'll acknowledge that.
Thank you.
Ms. Steves, will you do a roll call, please?
Linda Boudreau,
No.
Candace Knudsen,
Yes.
Linda Moore,
No.
Jerry Robichaud,
Yes.
Cassie Steves, aye. John Bellingham.
Aye.
Passes 4-2.
Thank you. Passes 4-2. We'll move on now to 8A5, new policy 598, information security. Is there a motion for approval of new policy 598, information security?
So moved.
Thank you, Director Robichaud. Do we have a second? Pencil roll here.
I'll second.
Thank you, Director Boudreau. Discussion. Director Moore, I believe you wanted me to pull this one.
Yes, thank you. Okay, please look under guiding principles. That's V5-2, page 2. And I'm going to quote. It says, data users are granted data access privileges commensurate with their role and work responsibilities. That is, all schools or other facilities are responsible for the district data they access, create, modify, and/or delete. Now, I've got a major concern about this, and I know I've asked Mr. Betty some questions on that at the policy committee, but I do read these sometimes 3 times, and the more I read sometimes, the more problems I have. I do have a major concern is that we now have a medical clinic at the Faribault High School. And as we all know, students, I think as young as 15 and now I've even heard 12 years can receive treatment at a medical facility without parental knowledge or consent. In fact, I will give you this is an anecdotal, it was a true story. In fact, a few years ago, a medical facility would not allow my daughter to access my granddaughter's files without my granddaughter's permission. And I think she was 14 or 15 at the time. And this really is, I believe, this is a concerted effort to take away parental rights. And I think it needs to be stopped. And I'm very concerned about that. I know my daughter was very upset. She said, I'm paying the bills, why shouldn't I, and that's my anecdote. But another concern is who's getting these data points. I know Waltz there's rumblings as he connected to China. And I believe that it's interesting that Governor Newsom of California noted that after a trip to China, which uses a social credit score system, he announced the next phase that they would use more than 1 billion data points. And then, so we've got health finders through Infinity Campus, is that correct, Is it the data that
Infinite Campus is our student management system.
And, okay, I guess my problem is that we have student academic data, but we also now have the health data, which is physical and mental, through the health finders. And before I even, consider this, I want to know some very specific questions. Specifically, who has access? I'd like to know who all has access to this, their job titles, I don't want to know their names. Where the data is going to, and it's very specific, be specific. When will the data be in aggregate, where will the data be in aggregate form? And if it is, to whom or to what entity is it sent to? And if there is individual data sent, I'd like to be specifics as to where that goes. I think we need to be very careful about this because they talked about a social credit score, and I don't know if people know about that, but they can use that data to discover or to figure out, I guess, from a student or where parents, when they're answering these questionnaires or whatever, to present, to discover, I guess, their social credit score. And that is very concerning to me. I'm not going to get into that, but I think I'd really like to know more about this before I go any further with this. And I think as a board, we should be very concerned about this too, especially when parental rights are being taken away. And I have that with my daughter. And now we're getting into the medical facilities. So I think we have to be very careful here. Thank you.
Further discussion on new policy 598, information security.
I'm just going to ask a follow-up question to Ms. Moore. Are you suggesting that we table this and bring it back to policy for more thoughtful consideration? What's your...
Well, I think we should have this discussion because it does involve parental involvement. And I think we shouldn't, you and I are the only ones on the policy committee. I think it should be a discussion where, with the board, the elected board, because we represent the people. So that's why I'm bringing it out here. I'm not sure it should go back to the policy committee. I think we should kind of hash it out here and find out more. Because we are elected officials, and this is also taxpayer money.
Mr. Chairman?
Director Boudreau.
Thank you. I believe we do have a need for a security policy. We have had some situations where I'm glad that we have something that's coming forward. My question is, this is adapted from Minnetonka. Is there any particular thought behind is Minnetonka's policy been tested, or, do we have any information how we acquired this data?
So,
this policy?
Mr. Chair, I can answer that if you would like me to.
Yes, I would, Superintendent Benty.
We look out to other districts that have policies when there is not an MSBA policy in place for something that we feel there's a need for. So in this case, our Director of Technology and Education looked at MSBA. They did not have a policy around this. So he looked around the state to find out who has a policy around this. Minnetonka said they do. It was vetted by their attorneys. So we take that as that it has been run through an attorneys. The board did not ask me to run this one through our attorneys, so that it wasn't. We do have a second one that was asked to be run through our attorneys. There was also something that was brought up about health finders having access. Health finders does not have access to our student management system. So we use Infinite Campus. They do not have access to that. That is part of the memorandum of understanding that we have signed with them. I don't know if that calms any fears or not. This is based around the idea that people with certain titles and with certain job duties are the ones that have certain accesses within our student management system to see the different tabs that are in there. So if you are a para, you see these tabs. If you are a principal, you're going to see more tabs. If you are a director, you might see more tabs. All right, it allows you to have access to more information dependent on what your job title and what your need is. So I can tell you, when I moved into the superintendent role from high school principal role, I lost access to a lot of the information in Infinite Campus because it was not deemed necessary for my new job. So I can't go in and see all the things on students that I used to be able to see as a high school principal. That's really what this is saying in the area that has been brought up as concern. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Benty, for clarifying that. I, again, feel we need a policy. There's been a situation in the past, and this policy, I think, is good to have in writing. And I am somewhat relieved knowing that health finders or our medical contractors are not able to access this, and I am supportive.
Mr. Chair? Yes,
Director
I
Moore.
believe that we do need a policy like this. Yes, I guess one of the big things I'm concerned about is page 2. It says that is all schools or other facilities. That can bring in a lot of things. And, for instance, we have that medical facility at the high school. Does that include that? I guess define other facilities. Maybe you did.
So anyone else that would sign a memorandum of understanding with us to access our, whether it be our physical space or our students, they would have to have that memorandum of understanding that would go through us, that would then say what is information that we release or allow them to have access to, and vice versa. So that would come in that form, not in the form of what this policy says. So when Health Finders comes to us and they say, this is what we would like to do for you, there's a memorandum of understanding that comes with that on data releases that go back and forth.
So just let me clarify. Sorry about this, but let's say a student goes into the health facility that's 15 years old and they don't want their parents to at the high school. So I guess I'm concerned that this also has health data attached to it. Am I not? So where does that come in?
So I guess I'm a little confused.
Okay.
By if the student is dealing with us, then we're working on it through our management and our record system.
Mm-hmm.
If they're going in to see a professional like Health Finders or a doctor or something, that is going to be on their side with their records. And right now, those records are kept separate from each other. So right now, we don't have access to theirs. They don't have access to ours.
So this is not anything to do with health, physical or mental health, this one, right?
The topic that you brought up the first time, which was, if I can read it here, says it was number 5, section 2, data
Yes.
users are granted data access privileges commensurate with their role and work responsibilities and are responsible for their actions while using these privileges. That is, all schools or other facilities are responsible for the district data they access, create, modify, and or delete. So if we were to have an MOU with an outside organization that allowed them to have access to our records, not necessarily our health records, it could be attendance records. It could be potential grading pieces.
Yes.
All right, so if we have an outside organization working with our students on tutoring or on helping them to get their grades up, it would make sense for that organization to have access
Correct.
to our records in grades. What this says is that is data protected information, and they have to treat it the same way that we treat it, which means that I should not be sitting down with Jillian to talk about Jerry's attendance and grades. I talk about Jillian's attendance and Jillian's grades with Jillian, and that's where it stops. So that's the understanding that falls within that section.
That one. So it's basically the academics. Is this because now we're getting to the health fields, does this include the physical and mental health categories?
So at this point,
Right now,
no one has access to those records besides Faribault Public Schools.
but can they with this with this
No.
policy? Because
That
that's
would-
what I'm concerned about, is the health.
That would have to be an MOU that would be approved
By the board?
by the district to give them access to that.
So we would have to do this right now, it's just probably the data like attendance, things like that. That's what I wanted to
Attendance,
find out.
grades,
Okay.
yes.
And any
Telephone
other
numbers,
thing,
email
anything-
addresses for them to reach out to parents if they
Right,
need to.
right.
Exactly what it says here. Data users are granted the access with their role and work responsibilities.
Right, and so, as long as it doesn't have, if the health aspects comes in, we would have to approve of that. the
That would have to
district.
be an MOU that would come back to the
board.
district.
Okay. Thank you.
Last call for discussion on new policy 598, which has passed the policy committee, and this is the second reading of the board. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Ms. Steves, will you do a roll call on this one, please?
Yep. Linda Boudreau. Candace Knutson. Linda Moore.
Aye.
Jerry Robichaud.
Aye.
Cassie Steves, aye. John Bellingham.
Aye.
Passes 6-0.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 9, other committees, Finance Committee. I do have the Finance Committee report, so I'll give it to you here. Finance Committee met on April 14th, a week ago today, and we discussed the fiscal year 26 Nerstrand building lease agreement. There was discussion in that lease if the lease covers all our costs. It's pretty close to being a wash. There was mentioned also that 4 or 5 years ago, the lease amount was decreased for Nerstrand School due to declining enrollment there. The Finance Committee did not act upon the lease as we were getting more information, and it's pushed back to probably next month for discussion and that. Our financial performance, as you can see on board book here, et cetera, our March student counts, we are up 7 students from last month. We have an increase of 4 students at the Faribault Online Academy. Overall, we're down 37 students as compared to what was budgeted for this year. Our March comparative financial report, the HVAC is quite a bit higher than at this time last March. Electric is quite a bit less. And this is than last year, but it's due to rebates when they came. Our self-insurance revenues are not keeping pace with expenditures at this point, and we'll be seeing a 15% increase. We'll be acting on that in a couple agenda items later here. In insurance next year for our self-insurance policy members. Our March investment report, Reliance Bank has been funded with a small amount of money as we're moving away from CCF. Our investments are doing well at this time. And our March analytics, we're looking virtually right on par with what we expected to be with the exemption of construction and the OPEB trust, which is a good thing. We have seen more, Ms. Raisler stated that we have seen more expenses in construction than we were expecting. Our financial strategies, and this will be a agenda item as well down the road here, our 3-year projection in fiscal year 26. We're projecting a $873,246 budget deficit. Also in our financial strategies, Principal Ms. Ashley Benhart talked about the enhancements approved for fiscal year 26 to possibly include 2 FTE of a cultural language class. There's been some questions about that, and it's one of our last agenda items here tonight. And then our fiscal year 26 student projection has been increased as to what we originally budgeted for. We budgeted for a 2%. We're budgeting for a 2% increase in the general formula, and Ms. Raisler will provide us with more detailed information regarding the 3-year budget projections, I said, in a couple agenda items down the road here. Also, with our Finance Committee members' update and discussion, we had one Finance Committee member that resigned due to a move out of district, and we are looking, Mr. Benty and Ms. Raisler are looking for someone who would like to join the Finance Committee. And so if you're interested, contact Mr. Benty or Ms. Raisler, and it's, they're at 7:30 a.m. on the second Monday of the month, I think, so there. So, yeah. That fulfills that.
Mr. Chair.
And any questions?
Yeah.
Director Moore.
Yes, thank you. I think it's on page 3, this little chart.
It's on board book page,
Yeah,
okay?
3.
Our financial,
Yeah, the comparative financial report. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I see that where our revenues were up, which is good. I see the expenditures for medical claims and additional charges, that was up $40,000. Is there a reason for that? What is the reason for that it's up 40,000?
Ms. Raisler, would you like to come up
From
and
March of last year. or
answer those specifics,
March
please?
24 to March 25.
And specifically, I'm sorry. And specifically, you're looking at which piece?
The expenditures for medical claims, and I think it was additional charges. And so it was it's at the last, it's that one right there, 150,361, and it went up about 40,000, 190,000. What is the reason for that?
The expenditures are showing what our different fees are, what our costs are for the claims that have been coming in for health and those different pieces. So we know that we're behind. We know that our claims are exceeding what our revenue is coming in, and so that's why we will be looking at a 15% health insurance increase.
And there was administrative fees, none last year, now there was 35,000. Well, why is that?
That I would have to, unless Nicole knows off the top of her head, I would have to look at that.
Could you get back to me then?
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely, yes, absolutely. I'm not 100% sure why we didn't show any last March and why we're seeing that 36,000, so I will get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you. And then just one other thing next to the last page, they're not numbered here, so. With the expense revenue summary.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that one, it's, I think, the next one. I think that's one. Yeah, we look like we're quite a bit in the, in the red, 76,000, or, excuse me, million, 3 million, as I go across the board here. So could you explain that? a bit?
Sure. So what this report does is it shows the data that we have in a summary format for each fund. So the way that you read this report is up on top, we have the expenditures listed for each fund. So first it's the general fund, food service, et cetera. Then down below it's the revenues.
Yes.
So again, listed by each fund. So the budget that was adopted in June of 2024 is what you're seeing in the first column for the 25 adopted annual budget. Then we're showing activity that happened just in the month of March. The next column shows what we've either expended or received in through July through March, and then encumbrances, those dollars that are earmarked to be spent or to be received in but have not yet been finalized. And then we have our remaining balance for each fund.
Thank you.
Yep.
That's it. Any other questions on financial report? Thank you, Ms. Raisler. Very good. We'll move on to agenda item number 10. 10A is gifts and donations, resolution 25-28. It's quite a lengthy list, so bear with me. So resolution 2528 is as follows. We have donations. We want to approve acceptance of the following gifts donations. MRG Tool and Die donated metal tubing, flat stock pipe, estimated value of $500 to help the welding class prepare for a welding competition in April. TriStar Welding / Fabrication donated metal tubing, flat stock, angle iron, estimated value of $500 to help the welding class prepare for a welding competition in April. The following donations were given to the Nest. Faribault Elks donated toiletries, school supplies, clothing, and other supplies, estimated value of $4,000. Carol Levi and Julie Brown donated clothing items and shoes. The following donations were given to DECA. Burkhartzmeyer Shoes donated $20. Women of the Moose, chapter number 1476, donated $200. Mike's Garage LLC donated $250. Zambroda Sports and Spine, Weber Physical Therapy donated $200. Metcon Companies Incorporated donated $200. Harry Brown's Family Automotive donated $150. Andreas Agency LLC Farmers Insurance donated $100. LeCans Marine donated $500. The following donations were given in memory of Ed Duzbabic for Little Falcons. Oliver and Diane Larson donated $25. Bruce and Doreen Sanborn donated $50. Mark and Mary Ziegler donated $50. The Benar family, care of Cable Connection and Supply Company, donated $1,000. Sal and Joanne Sophia donated $200. Dr. Richard and Phyllis Berge donated $50. John and Shannon Bergs donated $40. Matthew and Kelly Ebershath donated $100. Meyerhofer Family Trust, Cheryl Meyerhofer, Nicholas Meyerhofer, Tom and Pat Duzbabic donated $100. Arlene Friesen donated $100. And Michael Brown and Christine Schaefer Brown donated $200. So could I have a motion for approval of accepting gifts and donations, Resolution 25-28? Thank you, Director Boudreau. Do we have a second? Thank you, Director Robichaud. Discussion?
Just a sincere thank you to all those that contributed.
Our community is so valuable to Faribault Public Schools and what they donate, all the way from metal supplies to help our kids to the Nest, DECA, and then just a real shout out for the memory of Ed Duzbabic doing so much for our Little Falcons program as well. He was such a great person for all our activities here in Faribault as well. So thank you to all those who donated. So any further discussion? Any further discussion? This is a resolution, so Director Steves, if you would do a roll call, please.
Linda Boudreau. Aye. Candace Knudsen. Aye. Linda Moore.
Aye.
Jerry Robichaud. Kathy Stevens, aye. John Bellingham.
Aye.
Passes 6-0.
Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item 10B, consider approval of 2025-2026 health insurance rates. And our Human Resources Director, Ms. Nicole Yoakum, if you'd like to come up please and do that. So could I have a motion for approval of the 2025-26 health insurance rates, please? Thank you, Director Boudreau. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Knudsen. And discussion, and I'll turn it over to you, Ms. Yoakum.
Good evening. Okay, so what you have in front of you on your memo is a very basic summary of where we are this year for our self-funded insurance plan. Our self-funded insurance plan includes all of our employees that are not teachers. So there's approximately 300 or so employees that are a part of this plan for our employees. So you can see on there kind of the history. It shows you that last year we only went up 5%, and this year the insurance committee is recommending a 15% increase. And that really is due to the fact that this past year we've been really watching our utilization of our premiums, and we're seeing an overspend in the amount of money we're bringing in versus the amount of money going out. So for instance, we're bringing if we would break even, we would be bringing in 100% of the total claims that the district is paying out. And this year, up through March 10th, we were using 117% of the premiums. So that means we were having to dip into our insurance fund balance, if you will, to pay for these premiums. So our insurance committee really took a hard look at this data and decided that we needed to make an adjustment and have our premiums increase by 15% this year to cover our anticipated overspend for now and also our future costs, because we really don't anticipate our costs to decrease, because that usually doesn't happen in the insurance world. So this year we did, because we were at 117% of our premiums versus 100%, we had to dip into our fund balance by about $140,000, which was the first year we've had to do that. Fortunately, we've been doing really, really good at setting our rates, and so we've been fortunate enough to build up a really good balance in our fund. It's been kind of hovering over about $900,000. So we have a little bit of a safety net there to be able to dip into it like we had to this year, but we don't want to do that again. We don't want to continue doing that because that's not fiscally responsible for us. So our recommendation as a committee is to make an adjustment in the amount of 15% to our premiums. Up there you'll see we have two different plans that we offer our employees. One is called our 1500 VIVA plan, and the premiums for the single person would be $1,304 a month. The premium for a family plan would be $3,267 a month. And then our other plan is our $3,500 HSA plan with a single premium that is $1,097 per month. And then our family plan will cost $2,744 per month for our employees. You have any questions about how we came about this or anything that you're thinking, wondering?
Board members? Director Boudreau?
Well, I guess it begs the question if this is the best solution for our 300 employees. And I'm just wondering if you had that discussion or if you are aware of premium rates elsewhere.
Sure, good question. So we did go out for proposals from other insurance companies, and we by law have to do that every so many years, but we do that also to be sure just of what your question is, to make sure that we're offering the best plans that we can. This particular plan, these plans that we landed on are the same ones that we've had for many years. However, we did decide to adjust the deductible on our VIVA plan. So our deductibles, we increased them a bit because without that increase, our actual premium increases were set to be closer to 18 to 20% of an increase versus a 15%. So we did both. We shopped the market and we also looked at our current plans to decide how we could adjust them to find some savings internally as well.
So if I may, Ms. Boudreau, Mr. Wolf and I are on the insurance committee, and I've learned a lot with this, but the teacher bargaining group is not part of our self-funded insurance. All the teachers are on their own program. It's called the Public Employee Insurance Program, PEEP they call it. So our self-insurance is all other employees in the district. So administrative, custodial, administrative assistants, et cetera, everyone else that chooses to be on that. So teachers are not part of that, which is, they're probably, I believe, 300 strong there. So the other couple hundred is what we're dealing with here. So like that. So I just wanted to point that out.
Okay, so what are the deductibles? What have they increased to? I'm just curious, is that the 1,500? Is that what that means with the VIVA plan?
It used to mean that, but it does not now. With the new plans, the actual single deductible is $2,100 a year, and the family is $4,200 per year. For the HSA plan, it is $3,500 for a single person and $7,000 for a family.
I have a
Director
question.
Knudsen.
Thank you. I have a question on the HSA. So I know as a teacher, the school district would put in $3,500 like into a health savings account. And so it actually would be kind of a wash that if you used all your health savings, then you would not be taking any money out of your pocket. Is that the same for employees that are not teachers?
The same concept is there, but not all employees get the same dollar amount put into their plans.
Okay.
If you have a couple weeks to study insurance, Ms. Yo can be glad. It's complicated. It's a lot of factors that go in. So, great explanation, Nicole. Thank you very much. Any further discussion on approval of the 2025-2026 health insurance rates? Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Yocum, very
Thank you.
much. 10C, consider approving name change for Roosevelt. Could I have a motion for approving the name change for Roosevelt, please? Thank you, Director Boudreau. Do I have a second? I'll second that motion. And just before, as we get into discussion, I'll have Ms. Raisler, if you would like to present whatever the name that is being recommended for Roosevelt.
Thank you. Because Roosevelt is basically changing its purpose from an elementary school to now it will be a pre-kindergarten, early childhood, special education, and kindergarten setting, the Department of Education needs us to change our purpose for the site, and at this time we then have the ability to change the name of the site if we so choose. So this would be the opportunity to do that, and this would be effective July 1st, 2025.
The name being proposed is Roosevelt Early Learning Center. Thank you. Questions or discussion?
Not super.
Director Robichaud.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I guess I disagree. I don't see the need to change the name unless you want to go Roosevelt Elementary / Early Childhood Center. It's still an elementary school, still serving elementary students. So I will not vote in favor of this change.
Further discussion. Director Moore.
Yes, thank you. I do agree with Dr. Robichaud with his assessment, and I feel that we don't need to do that, but I like your idea, so I won't be voting for this.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Director Steves.
go ahead.
So I would assume that the ALC will have a similar name change.
So in a year from now, we will look at the name change for the ALC when they move.
Okay.
Director Boudreau.
I just wondered if there was a discussion about this and, when it happened and what was the pros and cons?
So this was discussed at our district leadership council. The discussion was brought up around what the name should be. Roosevelt Early Learning Center was the name that was thrown out, and that everyone in that group agreed to. So.
Okay. Further discussion. Be the last call for discussion. Director Steves, I'm going to do a roll call. We'll do a roll call on this one too, if you would, please. We're ready to vote. Go ahead, Ms. Director Steves.
Linda Boudreau,
Aye.
Candace Knudsen,
Aye.
Linda Moore,
No.
Jerry Robichaud,
No.
Cassie Steves, aye. John Bellingham.
Aye.
Passes 5-4-2.
4-2. Thank you. Next, agenda item 10D is a report, our 3-year budget projections. And Ms. Raisler, you're at the podium, so I'll just turn it over to you.
Thank you. The report that you have in front of you is basically just a high-level view of what our projected budget looks like with some assumptions, some information there to help you understand how the numbers were derived. So the first column that you're seeing is the adopted 2025. So that's the budget that we're currently working under for fiscal year 25. And again, please note that this is just the general fund. So I'm just specifically talking about the general fund. So what was approved in June of 2024 is what you're seeing here for the adopted 25. So we approved a deficit of $273,400. When we ended fiscal year 24, our unassigned fund balance was actually at 14.3%. You may remember that our minimum fund balance, and that's in policy, that is 9.5%, and it's a percentage of the expenditures that we have in the general fund, less long-term facilities maintenance and a few other areas. So what this is telling us is that we are over our minimum fund balance by about 4.8%. And so that is a good thing, that we have been, the district did a great job in fiscal year 24, making some budget cuts into 25 and those different kinds of things. So with that overage, we have an opportunity, perhaps. What you're seeing in the projected 2026 is including the budget cuts that were already approved. So we had brought to the board a recommendation of $650,000 in cuts, but then we also had some items that were added back on, and we talked about that in February. And so that got us to a deficit of about $255,000. One of the enhancements that will be talked about later, a proposal of enhancement, is 2 full-time equivalent for our cultural and language classes. And so that is a proposed addition that's included in this projection. We also have an increase in student count, as Superintendent Benty talked about. We do have more students now coming in from STEM. And so the updated student count at this time is about 3,037, and in fact, it's actually higher than that today. But when I put this together, that was the count that we had, and so I went with the latest information that I had at the time. So that increases our revenue a little bit. Because our fund balance is looking really good, it has been proposed that we take some of that savings, some of those dollars, and set them aside in an assigned fund balance for curriculum. So what is included in the projection for 2026 is moving $750,000 from our current unassigned, undesignated fund balance and putting that into an assigned fund balance. And that way then, that can be used for future years, however we see fit for curriculum. We know that we have not, it was a budget cut years ago from my understanding, and we have not always been updating our curriculum to the latest standards and what we need to do. So this is a way for us to be able to put some dollars aside and start working on really strengthening our curriculum and getting on a cycle of improving that curriculum so that we can hit the goals that we've set for our district. So that is included in this projection. So when you look at where we were to start with for a deficit, about $255,000, we add on 2 FTE, we add on $750,000, but then we have revenue to offset that. We get to a projected deficit of approximately $873,000. So in the projected 2026 column, we're seeing that deficit. Even with that deficit, we would still be above our minimum fund balance of what we feel is appropriate for our districts to have savings, if you will, because that's what the fund balance is. I then projected out fiscal years 27 and 28, and the longer you do a projection, the fuzzier it gets. I don't have a crystal ball, unfortunately, so you have to take some assumptions into consideration. So we are still showing a bit of a decrease in our student enrollment, even with the increase of some of the enrollments that we've had of recent. Our trend is still showing that we'll be decreasing. Not as much, but still some, unless we can continue to grow those enrollments back up. So taking that into consideration, I did a 2% for the Gen Ed formula, the general education formula, so that's the amount per pupil that we get. I did a flat 2% because it is very much unknown what this legislative session is going to look like, let alone what future ones will look like. The other large piece for us in our district is the compensatory piece. So right now, our compensatory has gone down considerably from where it is this year. Our compensatory went down considerably. Now, depending on whose legislative proposals you're looking at, we could gain, a few more $100,000, or we could lose. We're looking at a $900,000 swing when we're looking at our compensatory. So it's hard to predict where we're going to end up. So Superintendent Benty and I agreed on something in the middle. And so that's what we are showing for 2026, and then I just carried that through 2027 and 2028. Now that may increase, that may decrease, but we're using the data that we have today to forecast that out. The amounts that you're seeing then projected 2027, you're seeing 1.5 million overspend. That is with the assumption we do nothing. We don't react. So in fiscal year 26, we have, we've spent some of our dollars on setting aside for curriculum and for, different initiatives that we have, those that have already been talked about in previous board meetings, etc. If we do nothing, then we would be looking at a $1.5 million deficit spend in 2027. Again, if we do nothing, that becomes a $2 million deficit spend in 2028. So of course we're going to be reacting to these things as they're happening, and if we see that our fund balance is decreasing continually, we of course are going to react, and we are going to make changes, and we are going to ensure that we never fall below that minimum fund balance. But this is what the projection looks like as of today.
Thank you, Ms. Raisler. So do we have any questions or discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Director Boudreau.
Ms. Raisler, what is the amount for the first in the notes, the 2 FTE cultural and language classes? What is the cost of that?
It's assumed about $170,000, about $85,000 per FTE, and that includes salary and benefits.
$175,000.
170.
And then it looks as though we're relying on our unassigned fund balance to make us even.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens if our state does not respond and remove some of these politicized DEI, and we are caught without funding? I mean, I'm concerned about that. I don't know if individual districts have the opportunity to just divest themselves of DEI, or if this is a full state issue. I'm just concerned about spending down our fund balance. I know we're doing well there, but we weren't a few years back. We were just at the bare minimum percentage we should have. So I thank you for providing these. There's a lot of unanswered questions that we have no control about, and that is the compensatory. Is it going to be cut as proposed by one plan? Will we get anything in Gen Ed formula? We have a $6 billion deficit in the next biennium projected. I guess I'm just a little concerned with adding any money in our curriculum right now. That's just my thinking, and we have to wait and see how many new students we get, right? Because that is really going to be a telltale sign for us.
Yes.
But thank you for presenting this.
Director Moore?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I do agree with Ms. Bedreau, because it's with the federal, you know, I don't know, at first I looked at it was 6 million, now it's 9 million. I don't think we should, I think we should be very cautious in what we are doing. I don't know if we should add any more on, and I agree with you on that, your assessment on that.
Director Robichaud?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm taking an opposite view. I'm very pleased to see that the leadership has decided to finally add some money to curriculum. If we don't start looking at our curriculum, we're going to have to do all kinds of things 5 years from now. So it's pleased to see that you're looking at that and saying we need to take a comprehensive look at our curriculum, and that's our foundation of education. And if we're not offering students a comprehensive curriculum, why are our doors open? So I'm pleased to see that, and respect the fact that it should be more than that, given the years that we've not done anything with curriculum. But I'm pleased to see that we're finally taking a proactive move toward curriculum in this district.
Thank you, Dr. Robichaud. So I just have a couple things to add. First of all, the fund balance, I don't believe in my tenure on the board, I don't believe it's dipped ever below 10%, maybe 9.89 but not even close to 9.5. Never has in my 7 years now on the board, and go up to 14. I know MSBA and our audit people like to see it at 19, 20 or whatever, but that'll never happen. I view, when I talk to people in the community, taxpayers saying, and they appreciate us only increasing the taxes by 0.68% this year. Not the 9% or 11% or double digits as the city and the county did. There. But when we get to this point and in a curriculum review, I do know and have experienced that we had a curriculum review cycle of every 7 years of every subject in the alternated years. And we looked at different curriculums, and then we invested, et cetera. As Dr. Robichaud said, it's a constant focus here. We hear all the time we want our kids' scores to go up. And my understanding of a lot of this money is to go to middle school math, which is in need of a overhaul of a curriculum. Big time. So this investment, and also I view what the taxpayers are saying is, so you're taking my taxes here, and you get that money, and you're putting into your savings account rather than investing in our students. And you keep beefing up you're padding your savings account, and I understand we need it, and it's a rainy day fund right here. But in some of our curriculum areas, it's a flash flood, it's a thunderstorm, people. We need to redo them immensely. So it's nice to say other districts would go, wow, 14.3% unassigned fund balance. You are so fortunate, are we? If our programs are lacking, if we're not investing in our kids. And I'm not saying go down to 9.5%, but I do believe we do need to take part of this, and then we've always done a great job in my careers in education of adjusting our budgets when we see we're going to have less students and a deficit spending like we see in 26 and 27, that we've adjusted for that. We cut $3 million last year. We adjusted. That's why we're sitting here right now. That's the reason for it, because our leadership and directors had the vision of saying we deal with this now rather than a $6 million cut in one district and 1.8 to the south. So I'm in favor of, we need to continue to look at what's best for our kids and invest in our kids, and what it's going to take, that's what's going to be the discussion on my part. So with that, any
Mr.
other
Chair,
questions for, go ahead, Mr. Benty.
So I'll just throw my 2 cents in here.
Thank you.
My previous social studies teaching, math side of this, school finance. So we are currently at a little over 14%, and I do believe that is too high for the reasons that have been listed here. Money to our funds to our curriculum department and designated for curriculum were cut many, many years ago. That was some of the very first reductions that were made, I believe. I was just talking today, I've been in the district for over 12 years now, and we've reduced every single year except for one. So we are going to continue, like Ms. Racer said, to make adjustments year by year based off of enrollment, based off of revenue, so that we have the rolling planes of our budget versus the peaks and valleys. So that is what we have agreed upon, but we needed to get to this point, hence the $3 million reduction that you talked about for last year to get us to this point. With that being said, 14.3 I think is too high. All right, 9.5 I think is cutting it close, because 9.5 would give us how many weeks of payroll before we would be out of money? 6?
35 days.
35 days, okay? So that'd be about 7 weeks. So I was close.
You're pretty.
Yeah, social studies math right there. So with those things in stride, I also like to look at it and say, but we also need to have a little bit of a cushion during the school year as well. So my preference would be for us to be somewhere around that 11 to 11.2% ongoing. That gives us a little bit of that extra money during the school year if all of a sudden we need to increase something, or if we have a catastrophe, if we lose one of our boilers. I know that wouldn't cover that, but it would at least take a big chunk out of it. With Director Boudreau, I understand exactly what you're saying, because those are the things that keep me up at night as well. What I'm seeing right now is that the federal government is going after the states. They're not going after individual districts. They're not excluding individual districts out of the states. Now, that may change tomorrow, but right now they seem to be tackling this on a state by state. So it doesn't matter at this juncture what decisions we make, we're held under what our state is saying. Now, like I said, that may change in the future, but that's what I'm seeing right now. The focus is on Maine, but it is absolutely correct that the words Minnesota, or the names of Minnesota and California, came out of the federal government last week as the next places to look at. So I am also comfortable with this. I think we desperately need the money in curriculum to get us back on a cycle. And to spend down some of that fund balance, because I don't feel comfortable taking the public's money and sitting on it. I believe it needs to go to the purpose that it is there for, and that is for student learning and for the curriculum for them. Understanding also that curriculum purchases are one-time costs. So that is not a rolling $750,000. That is a one-time $750,000 that will be spread over a few years. Not all spent in 1 year. Did you hear me, Ms. Moore? Not all, or Ms. Hall, not all spent in 1 year. She's our Director of Teaching and Learning and loves curriculum. So that's just kind of my 2 cents there, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions or discussion on the three-year budget projections report? Director Robichaud.
Just a comment, I too appreciate the fact that you're looking at the future. That oftentimes we are put in a position, we've got to make some budget cuts. We at least now have a picture, and absolutely there are no guarantees, but at least we have some idea that we are going to have some financial struggles in the next 3 years. And I appreciate you bringing that forward to us. The other thing about curriculum, and I know it's not all 1 year you're going to spend $750, but it's about time we start spending some money on curriculum. So.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Racer. Board members, how are we doing Anybody need a break or anything?
You need a pencil roll?
5 minutes?
I have a couple who want 5 minutes. Let's go 5-minute recess. So we'll reconvene at 7:25. We're in recess. All right, I'll call the meeting back to order, come out of recess. Here, our next agenda item of the evening is the discussion item of language and cultural classes. So, Student Success Coordinator, Ms. Katie Schultz, and Principal, Ms. Ashley Benhart, if you would come up, please, and go over the present on the cultural class and language classes, please.
Perfect. Mr. Bellingham, is it okay if we stand up?
Oh, certainly.
Rather than sit down? Okay,
Certainly.
neither one of us sits down very well, so we're gonna
You're not
get
going to do a
started.
pencil roll, are you, or anything?
I am tempted. I have been SMART trained. I believe in SMART. It's good stuff. So I have done the alligator crawl many, many times with kids. Today we are here to talk about an idea that has been evolving over the past few months. I know a couple people have referred to it as the cultural and language class. We're going to flip that. Our focus is on language and culture, but our focus really is on teaching, reteaching language when kids can learn it best. So if we can turn to the next slide. I don't know who's in control here. Okay, you've got the clicker. We're going to start out teaching both Spanish and Somali at the elementary levels. We're going to go quickly through the current data that we see in Faribault. This is a snapshot from one day back in February when I looked into the demographics that we had in our system. If we look at federal ethnicity, 37% of our students are Hispanic, 21% are Black, 37% white, 5% are two or more races. But then when we look at home language, 24% of our students speak Spanish, 17% speak Somali, 57% speak English. So it begs the question, why teach language when there is so much else to teach? I hear this question a lot. So we're going to do something with you here. I'm going to turn the microphone over to Principal Benhart, and she's going to take it away.
I know you're shaking in your boots right now because I made you shake maracas last time. I'm not going to do that. I just need a volunteer this time.
Do I have to appoint someone?
You sure can.
You want to volunteer?
I scared everybody. I know I did.
Director Steves is going to go.
Director Steves, can you please read the passage on the board? Out loud.
Social studies passage. We, actar our comunidad, we al habitamos in our comunidad. Some people choose alicates and globinoardes. These people make lays. Lays help keep everyone safe and fair.
You can stop. That was really good. Good job. Excellent. So if we were to continue this entire passage, you'll notice that there's a mixture of English and Spanish in there. This passage represents what our students that are coming in with lower vocabularies in English see when they're reading a passage at their grade level. About 80% of it is understood, or the vocabulary is in their brain, or kind of those sight words is what we call during our letters training. 80% of them are in English, the rest are in their native language or in their foundational language. So as we kind of struggle through that, Director Steves, you were able to decode pretty well and read the words, but did you understand what you were reading?
Nope.
And that is what a lot of our learners are struggling to do during our literacy time of the day. Currently, at the elementary level, we're conducting letters training. We just finished year 1 today. Woot woot, that's a big celebration. We will conduct year 2 next year, but we also are implementing our Bridge to Read phonics curriculum in grades K through 3. What our data is showing at the elementary level is that students either get the phonics or they don't. They may be able to read the words, but they can't spell them because there's no vocabulary, there's no context or vocabulary to attach the word that they're decoding to. So this word ayudar means to help. But if students don't know that or don't have that background knowledge, they're just decoding the word and they're not truly comprehending what's going on here. So what our data is telling us is that our students are not truly reaching their potential if they're coming in with a vocabulary deficit.
And this vocabulary deficit isn't just multilingual learners. We have students who come to us, there's lots of research that shows students in poverty come to school with significantly fewer words than other kids. And so we're seeing this deficit across all demographics, not just our multilingual learners. So I've dug into the research. There is so much research out there on bilingualism and the benefits of being fully bilingual. So let's talk about how our multilingual learners benefit from learning, continuing to learn, or relearning their first or dominant language. Right now, what we practice in schools is subtractive bilingualism. My family, my ancestors experienced this. When they immigrated to America, they spoke Danish. They were not allowed to speak Danish by their parents or at their schools. And so within one generation, that language is lost. Okay? Yes, we learned English. English is now our dominant language, but that language loss is significant. I cannot go visit with relatives in Denmark. I can't communicate with them. If we look at what the research says, most of the time when students are mixed bilingual, if you look at that first point, mixed bilingual children fully closed the math gap by 5th grade. Just teaching them their first language while also teaching them English closed that gap. Supporting native language and English acquisition and development is an important aspect of overcoming achievement difficulties. A lot of our multilingual learners experience some of those achievement difficulties. If we teach both languages, additive bilingualism actually increases results in both language. Not only are they becoming bilingual, but it changes their brains. They're more able to problem solve, multitask, and the mental flexibility is there to approach tasks that are more difficult. If we look at the last point, those who participated in two-way bilingual programs were performing at academic levels equal to or greater than those who were not participating in those programs. There's other pieces of research that I found really, really interesting. This first point was very clear to me. I have a group of parents here, I'm so proud of them. We've been meeting with a group of Somali folks and a group of Spanish-speaking folks for the last few months. One of the comments that we hear a lot, I'm going to get to that here in a minute, is that parents and children, as they lose that first language, no longer have a common language. They no longer have that strong language connection with each other. I'm going to get to a quote about that here in just a second. Middle school math scores are higher for students who are fully bilingual. Also, high school GPAs are higher. One comment I get a lot, but we want them to learn English. Teaching them their first language while we teach them English does not slow anything down. They actually learn quicker after that. From our great group of parents, we have some quotes. My child doesn't understand me when I talk to them. My English isn't good and their Somali isn't good. How do I even begin to help my child? When we don't have that common language, how do I help them navigate the United States? How do I help them navigate school? How do I help them navigate anything as our languages get further and further apart? I've never felt like it was okay to value my language and my culture. I thought because we were in the United States, English should be the only thing that matters. This is what my great-grandfather told his children. You're in the United States, we speak English now. And all of that language and culture was lost. I'm afraid I'm losing my children. They don't understand their own culture. Okay? But now let's talk about monolingual English kids. Do they benefit from this as well? Students, monolingual English speakers who participated in elementary foreign language instruction outperformed both EL and monolingual students on every assessment. It changes the way your brain works. It makes your brain work better. Time that was spent teaching language, that quote from the beginning, why would we do this? We have so many things to learn. Actually learning another language does not take away or have any negative effect on skills and skill development. They still actually gain those skills as well. This last one is interesting. The United States suffers from a foreign language deficit, and there is an urgent need to build both motivation and interest in other languages, along with sustainable skills in other languages in the U.S. And there's more. Every piece of research that I have found says the positive definitely outweighs the negative. The last quote, at every grade level, foreign language students significantly outperformed their non-foreign language counterparts on language achievement tests, just by learning another language. Here's some feedback from some monolingual English-speaking families. I took Spanish in high school and barely remember anything. Anybody relate to that quote? I think we all can. We took 2 years in high school, and we can maybe say, hi, how are you? I wish I would have learned it earlier. I hear that all the time. The other quote that I keep hearing is, we keep cutting foreign languages in this district. We now currently only offer one foreign language at the high school, Spanish. I took this group of parents, we had a group of about 15 of us, they're not all here, to St. Paul to take a look at what they do for their language and culture program. Students involved in the language and culture program, kindergarten through 12th grade, scored at the advanced low or higher on the bilingual SEALS test of bilingualism. It's a test that we offer every year at the high school. We just got done doing it. Students take this test. They can earn high school and college credit at the same time by taking this test. If they follow this class all the way through, by the time they get done with high school, they are at the advanced level in the language they took. This is roughly the same as if they were in our full immersion program. Okay, so we're learning language all the way through kindergarten, or first grade through 12th grade. By the time they get done with elementary school, they have done the equivalent of Spanish 1 at the high school. By the time they get through middle school, they've done the equivalent of Spanish 2. They enter high school at the Spanish 3 or even AP levels, just by going through this program. One of the things that we saw in our Somali visit to St. Paul is that the class was learning part of their culture, the Somali national anthem, and one of our parents, I think she is not here right now, she said, I got emotional when I heard them singing our song in our language, just by hearing that national anthem being sung by their children. Some of the parents even said, I didn't even know all the words. I've forgotten them. But they were able to learn that as the children in that program. So I'm going to turn it over to Principal Benhart because she has been very instrumental in talking about what will this look like.
All right, so logistically, where this would fit is 30 minutes a day. There's a content block carved out for elementary teachers. So during that 30 minutes, content is taught between health, science, and social studies. So during this time, the Somali instructor and the Spanish instructor would take a cohort of students. We would probably cap it close to 28 if there was that much interest. And the remainder of the students would stick with their monolingual peers in a classroom. So we have, let's say, 4 classroom teachers. Let's say 20 of the students in the grade level went to the Somali course, 20 went to the Spanish course. The remainder of the students would stick with the classroom teachers. Those teachers could choose to do a multitude of activities to teach the science, the social studies, and the health. But this program is very much opt-in. It's offered grades 1 through 4. So if there are 2 FTE, the Somali instructor would go between Jefferson and Lincoln, and the Spanish instructor would do the same. Again, it would be during that content block, which would be carved out for teachers. And they would be learning the science, social studies, and health through a curriculum in Spanish and in Somali. Monolingual students can also opt into the program. It's parent choice. It's open to anybody. And then again, if they don't choose to be in that course, they will just receive their content per normal in their classroom with the classroom teachers. So that's kind of what it would look like from a general overview. Again, 30 minutes of instruction daily, Spanish, Somali, or English, and then the summary would be health, science, and social studies, meeting those Minnesota state standards.
As we think about, okay, why? Where are we going? One of the things we've talked about with Mr. Benty a little bit is, what if our vision is bilingualism for all? everyone goes through Faribault Public Schools and becomes bilingual. Adding languages every year, every other year. German, I know when we cut German at the high school, that was a big blow to this community as they have a very strong German heritage. We could add that back in. I know many families feel that Mandarin Chinese is very desirable. We could add that in. I know some districts are focusing in on French and Japanese. That could be added in future years as well. Really, the options are limitless. But how cool would that be if our kiddos get all the way first grade through 12th grade and they are fully bilingual at the advanced level in the language that they choose? That's what we have for you. What questions do you have for us? I know we went through that quickly.
You could add Norwegian to that.
My great-grandmother was Norwegian, and I speak zero of it, so yes.
Board members.
Mr. Chair, I know
Director
I
Moore.
talked to you about this before, but I just got this afternoon, and there was a lot to take in, and I feel right now that I'm really unprepared for discussion at this point, because I'd really like to go through it and have some questions. And like I said, I just got this afternoon, and I know and I would appreciate if we could get it sooner, because I don't feel prepared for discussion right now. And I don't know what to do about that, but.
Presentation was on board book on Wednesday, correct?
Was it on Wednesday?
Jamie?
It might not have been
Well,
there till Thursday.
when I went on Wednesday, it wasn't there.
I think it was Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Well, what questions or whatever descriptions you have, please do email Mr. Benty and myself, and we'll forward that to get your questions answered for possible discussion. So, yeah.
Mr. Chairman?
Director Boudreau.
I would like to know a little more about the cultural part and what that entails in the proposal.
That's a great question. We have not fully worked that out yet. St. Paul has graciously agreed to share curriculum with us because we are not in competition with them. So when we went to visit, some of the cultural pieces that they talk about is, so when they're learning the names of animals in Somali, they focus in on East African animals because that's part of what they would have seen had they lived in that community still. So it's cultural pieces that are important to the community that they are serving. Foods, clothing, those kinds of things.
Mr. Chairman, is there a key component that ties into our board goals with the proposal? I mean, maybe there's many components. I guess I would just like to know how it fits. I mean, achievement is everything for me right now, and let me know what you think about that.
Almost all of the research out there says that fully bilingual kids achieve everyone. That is, it changes something in the brain. It makes the brain flexible. It makes it more able to problem solve, to think critically. It just makes that brain flexible, more so than just being monolingual.
Yes, and I do agree with that. I think in the earlier start with bilingual, the better. I guess my concern is with the culture and with, instead of learning the language, but with the cultural aspect, because many times you cannot distinguish between culture and faith-based tenets. And I think could get into some sticky categories, especially with the Minnesota Human Rights Act, because it talks about you can't, discriminate between race, religion, which is faith-based. And I think if we did that, we might have to add an aspect of maybe our Constitution is based on the Federalist Papers, and Federalist Papers are based on Judeo-Christian values. So we'd have to add that element in there too to be equitable. So I don't have a problem with the bilingual, but just off the top of my head here, I am worried, concerned about with the culture, there's always faith-based tenets. And you can do that with studying our Constitution. Well, the Constitution doesn't mention God, but it is based on Federalist Papers. Federalist Papers are based on Judeo-Christian values. So you can't separate culture out between faith-based tenants. And I think this could be discrimination if we're not very careful. We have to be very careful in this, and that's why I want a little more time to think about this. And I'd like, because you said you're not fully, that hasn't fully worked out what the culture is. I'd like to know exactly what the culture, and I'd like to see the curriculum before I do anything. Because in order to be fair to all groups in our school, we need to, because if we add this, we're going to need to add another component too.
I believe strongly in separation of church and state, and so if we were to bring cultural elements in it, faith would not be an element that I would support bringing in regardless of the faith. So I think that as we look at it, the curriculum will be transparent, it'll be available to whoever wants to look at it to go through, for sure.
When will that be done?
We will have to go through this board to approve the addition, and then St. Paul is willing to share their curriculum, and then but they require a memorandum of understanding in order to get it, so that we're not selling it or using it or giving it to anyone else, because we're not in competition.
So we would approve it before we can see the curriculum, and I don't know if that's a good idea.
Yeah, that's what
Because
they require.
And I think the public may have a problem with that too, so.
Okay.
We
And I
have
can talk to
tread
Mr.
very
Benson.
carefully here.
Yeah, I can talk to him about the order of that.
So let me go back. Director Boudreau, were you done with your question?
I think it was answered, yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure you had a chance to follow up with that. Yes, so Director Robichaud.
Thank you. I want to commend you for working on this. You know, your one slide, one research that you showed is that we are America's deficit in world languages. And I totally agree with you that we need to do that. As far as the culture goes, you know, if we really want to eliminate all cultures, then let's look at our calendar. Our calendar is focused on Judeo-Christian times. Where do we take off during the winter? At Christmas time. We should be taking school out on every religious holiday for every student that's in our schools, and not just the Christian holidays. We should be looking at a more comprehensive picture of what our schools really offer. I commend you for this. If you take a look at the numbers, what we are a majority of students of color in this district, coming with all kinds of different, I mean, there's 58% as opposed to 37%. Significant percentage difference. What you're talking about, and as far as the culture goes, you can't learn the language without also understanding the culture. Take a look at the indigenous folks. You know, Lakota people are struggling always because their students are losing their language, which means they're losing their culture. Mm-hmm. And I think you've got to embed both of those. Now, it's not a religious basement. It's not a religious context. It's a language context, which in fact you cannot separate the culture from it. Absolutely, it's not going to be religious based, but it is something that you're to be commended for looking at this so that our students, if we're going to have a world-class educational system in this district, we've got to look at a more comprehensive thing than just teaching English or just teaching language in an English context. We've got to take a look at it from a much broader perspective. And it says we will, you know, one of our strategies is we will address individual student learning in an innovative and challenging way. That's what you're doing. And I appreciate the fact that you're doing this. Thank you.
Can I add one thing?
Oh, certainly.
Am I allowed? One of the data pieces that I didn't put up there is the optimal age to learn a second language or to learn another language. Any guesses what that age is?
3 years old.
Nope. Nope.
It's 0 to 12, isn't it? Maybe
Nope.
that's before it was.
It's actually 7. We plan on starting teaching this second language at first grade when kids are 7, because that is when they can learn it best. For whatever reason in the United States, we've decided that we're going to start teaching language at 16. By that time, your brain is not able to acquire a language. You actually have to learn it and memorize it. Whereas if we start teaching kids at 7, they will acquire the language. They can actually speak it without an accent, which a lot of our learners, like when I speak Spanish, I have a lot of years of Spanish, even our faces will say, Katie, your accent is really good. but it's still there. They can still hear it. Whereas if our kiddos start learning early, that accent is gone, they are like native speakers of that language, whatever the language is. So I think thinking about this at the elementary level is just so much smarter than waiting until they're in high school and they can't acquire that language easily.
I will also say from my chair here that I appreciate you looking at this because we're thinking outside the box. And it's not the status quo anymore, which we said we need changes in that. What really strikes me is I know the elementary schedule fairly well, and we know it's very heavy in math and reading, as I pointed out before, and health, science, and social studies, let's be honest, rarely gets touched because of time constraints. And as a former sixth grade teacher who taught Minnesota studies, history, kids came from fifth grade all over the district and knew that had never taken a social studies class before or knew anything about community or whatever. And so I really, or health, just eating right, et cetera. And our science was mentioned before. Our science, we don't teach science. Let's be honest. Very few classes actually teach science or have the time because we're focused on math and reading. And it is that way. So I like that. But a couple things we'll need to work out. I would like more detail as well, and we'll be talking with Mr. Benty about it, and he can distribute the information. But the curriculum, we'll probably need, if the board approves the program, might be an addendum or whatever, saying we need to see the curriculum as well and how that's going to flow and how that's going to do that. I would like that, I guess, with that. And then I do like that it's optional. You know, if you just want to continue your class in your regular classroom, fine. If not, you want to reach outside the box, et cetera. It gives maybe elementary kids the excitement to have an elective or have something that different there is all. And I do like the things, as Director Boudreau pointed out, how does this tie in with our board goals of reading well by third grade and ready for, like that. So that's it. But thank you for thinking outside the box there, and there's been some good discussion there. And I'll be communicating with Mr. Benty here.
Perfect. I will reach out to St. Paul. I'm certain that they will allow the board to see the curriculum before the MOU is signed. Yep.
Or will the curriculum actually be, what we get from them, be adapted to fit Faribault needs?
Absolutely. Yes. Their curriculum doesn't have that content focus as much as we are going to have. We're going to have that science and social studies and health focus as well. So we will have to add pieces in to meet the standards there.
Okay. Any board member, anything else? Ms.
I've got something.
Director Knudsen.
So I was thrilled to hear that we finally got an immersion program. And so next year it'll include second grade?
Yes.
Is my understanding. I saw the job posting. Okay, so are we thinking of expanding to add a Somali immersion program or expanding? I mean, because we have one section of each. So, I mean, I talk to people and there's like a waiting list, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, I would just like to see every child in an immersion program. So you said something about that by the time they get to high school, they would have completed the equivalent of Spanish 1 and Spanish 2.
Correct.
Is that the immersion program or is that this 30 minutes a day?
It's both.
Really?
Yes.
So in 30 minutes, a student is going to improve that much? And I also agree that, I talk to students who, they're in their fourth grade of Spanish and can't talk to anybody who's Spanish speaking.
Yep.
So, I just think we have to, support that language development and, there are so many advantages to our brains if we have a couple languages.
Go ahead, sorry.
Well, and I just, I know little ones who go into speaking other languages and go into an English-speaking daycare at 1 year old, and they mix up their words to begin with, and then after a while they know to speak to me in English and mom in Chinese, that kind of thing. So.
The immersion program has more of an emphasis on bilingualism and biliteracy, so reading, writing in both of those languages as well. This one, correct me if I'm wrong, would have both as well. However, the immersion program does do that literacy focus more so than this program would.
Right.
Director Steves, you have?
Mr. Chair, I would just say thank you for the presentation, and good for board members to know what we're working on. It comes kind of as a surprise when you first hear about it, and you feel, I feel, uninformed sometimes. So when we're working on things that's going to impact our district and our board is going to need to approve, it's really helpful to know what it is. So it's just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Director Steves, you have a couple things you said?
Yeah, so I would be very interested in reading this, or like the research results and how they relate to our 4 district goals. I think there's a couple really compelling points. So parent-child communication in a common language is the greatest predictor of positive school outcomes. It really, like some of these comments from families, I mean, we all want our kids to be successful, whether we speak English or Somali or Spanish or whatever. And that feels, as a parent, I understand that, and that's why I am here. And I think if this is an avenue or something else is an avenue to help kids and parents be more connected to education, lifelong learning can continue no matter if you were born here or immigrated here. But yeah, I mean, that's like the most compelling thing out of this whole article is definitely we all want our kids to be successful.
I love that you pointed that out. That's why I highlighted it, because it's something that I think we as monolingual parents and educators don't often think about, that maybe the parent and the child in these situations don't have a language to communicate with each other. And how hard is that? Parenting is hard already, and then you can't communicate in a common language, and you're still supposed to parent. You're still supposed to help with homework, all of those things. That is a huge task when that common language isn't strong.
Further items of discussion or questions? Thank you so much for the presentation. Very much, thank you. Agenda item number 11 are dates to remember. April 28th, 2025, 3 p.m. right here, board retreat. April 30th, 2025, 3:30 is the Community Education Advisory Council. May 5th, 2025, 5:30 p.m. work session. May 6th at 3:45 p.m. is the Policy Committee. May 8th, 2025, 7:45 a.m. Facilities Committee meeting. And May 19th, 2025, 5:30 p.m. our business meeting. So you know that. Agenda item number 12 is adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Director Knudsen. Is there a second to that motion? Thank you, Director Steves. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.